So, there's something we need to talk about today. A behavioral pattern in families that often goes unnoticed, but causes tremendous long-term damage. It's a psychological and emotional trap, and sadly, many parents and children fall into it without ever realizing the cost. I'm talking about what happens when a parent, usually a mother, forms an excessive emotional attachment to just one of her children, often calling them her favorite or treating them as her emotional crutch. Now, this isn't about love. Parents can love all their children, but it's about emotional dependence, favoritism, and what we call emotional enmeshment. And the reality is this: when a mother overly favors one child and forms an unhealthy emotional bond with them, that child rarely, if ever, succeeds in life. This isn't a judgment, it's an observation, and it's happening in countless families all over the world. We see it in homes where the mother singles out one child as her confidant, her helper, her savior, her emotional anchor. On the surface, it may seem sweet or harmless, just a close bond between a parent and child. But if you look deeper, it's not healthy, it's not equal, and it's not functional. What starts as affection turns into control. What seems like love becomes manipulation, and in the end, the favored child pays the highest price. Why does this happen? Sometimes the parent, consciously or unconsciously, projects their own fears, weaknesses, or unfulfilled desires onto one child. Maybe the parent feels lonely, rejected, or helpless, and they pick one child to fill that emotional gap. And in doing so, they unintentionally cut that child off from their own individuality. That child is no longer free to grow independently. Instead, they're taught, sometimes subtly, sometimes directly, that their primary role in life is to make their parent feel seen, loved, and validated. This kind of parenting dynamic is emotionally suffocating. The child may get comfort, affection, even gifts and attention, but what they lose is far more important: autonomy, resilience, a sense of personal direction. They grow up thinking, "My mother needs me, I can't make my own decisions, I have to protect her, I must choose her over my siblings, over my own life, even over myself." And that's where the real tragedy begins. The child that becomes the parent's favorite usually doesn't succeed in the ways that matter. They may grow older, but not wiser. They may reach adulthood, but emotionally, they're still that same dependent child who was never given the space to make mistakes, face consequences, and build character. They remain emotionally fragile, unable to deal with stress, criticism, or independence. They may struggle to hold a job, maintain adult relationships, or take care of themselves, because their entire identity was shaped around being the chosen one, the special one, the mother's favorite, not around who they truly are. What's worse is that this relationship often comes at the cost of the family as a whole. The parent, now obsessed with one child, distances themselves from the others. The siblings grow resentful. The emotional balance of the family collapses. What should have been a safe, supportive environment turns into a war zone of comparison, jealousy, and division. And the parent, in protecting one child, ends up hurting all the others, and eventually even the favored child, too. Let's look at the long-term consequences. A child raised under the shadow of excessive parental favoritism often develops deep insecurity. Why? Because their self-worth is not rooted in their own achievements or personality. It's rooted in the approval of one parent. And when that parent is no longer around, or that approval fades, the child feels lost. They don't know who they are without that relationship. They've never learned to stand on their own feet. In fact, many such children grow into adults who still live with their parents, emotionally and sometimes physically. They don't pursue careers or relationships with confidence. They hesitate to take risks. They have a deep fear of failure because they were never taught how to navigate it. And ironically, the very child that the parent wanted to protect ends up being the most fragile. Meanwhile, the other children, the ones who were sidelined, are often forced to grow up fast. They build their own strength. They learn to cope alone. They develop life skills, emotional maturity, and resilience. And over time, many of them succeed, not because they were loved less, but because they were left to find their own way. So here's the hard truth. Favoritism doesn't help anyone. Not the parent, not the child, not the family. It breeds imbalance. It sows division. It creates a false sense of intimacy that collapses under real-life challenges. And above all, it deprives the favored child of a real chance at success. What's the solution? It starts with awareness. Parents need to recognize the patterns in their behavior. Are you relying too heavily on one child for emotional support? Are you distancing yourself from your other children? Are you praising one child while criticizing the others? If so, it's time to step back. Children, no matter their age, need emotional equality. Not sameness, but fairness. Every child must feel seen, heard, and valued in their own unique way. Emotional connection should not be a reward for obedience or a punishment for independence. It should be unconditional. And if you are the favored child, know this: you have the right to your own life. You are not responsible for your parents' happiness. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to grow. Being loved is not the same as being used. And real love, healthy love, allows you to become your own person. Now, some people will say, but what's the harm in being close to your mother? There's no harm in closeness. But there is harm in emotional enmeshment, when the lines between parent and child are so blurred that neither can function independently. When a parent expects a child to take on the role of a best friend, a therapist, or even a spouse, that's not closeness, that's dysfunction. And it leads to emotional burnout, bitterness, and often, complete family breakdowns. The truth is, emotional health in families comes from balance. Every child should feel loved, not more, not less, just loved. Every parent should be strong enough to deal with their own emotions, not make their children carry them. And every family member should have the freedom to grow into who they are, not into who someone else needs them to be. Let's end with this. A favored child may be protected for a time, but that protection becomes a cage. And no one thrives in a cage. If we want our children to succeed, to be emotionally strong, independent, and capable, we must let them face life on their own terms. We must teach them to think, decide, fall, rise, and keep going. That's what real love looks like. Not control, not dependence, but freedom and faith. So if you see this pattern in your home, or in someone else's, it's time to talk about it. Because only when we confront the truth can we begin to heal.